And I like I've been to theater a decent amount, and what I learned in acting school is that all these emotions that we feel, whether it was people acting in yours and Sean
Yeah,
Kenny's productions years ago, or people today or in the future or in the past, regardless of who you are, where you come from, what your situations are, we all feel the same range of emotions. And a good theatrical production will elicit that from the audience.
exactly.
And that's what people go there to see.
Yeah, and so basically, Kenny not only was stage designer, but also he was trying to invent new personal experiences. In one particular case, in the year before I joined him, he designed a project in Montreal
Hmm.
for Expo 67.
For what? Oh, Expo 67?
Expo
Okay.
67 Montreal, and this was
Which is
called
what, a
the
World Fair or something?
World Fair.
Okay.
Yeah, and this was a thing called the Gyrotron, which was a tetrahedral, which is an architectural pyramid,
Hmm.
and it predates Spaceship Earth and Disney by 18 years. It's a track ride that goes all the way up inside this huge volume,
Hmm.
and is supposed to sort of give the feeling of going into space.
What?
So he was very much pushing the boundary all the time of this of on the stage, but also, unfortunately, a very poor businessman. And in
Well,
the
yeah,
end,
that's important.
yeah, and in the end, something we takes us a long time to learn. In the end, his company basically fell apart. But I had already joined hands with two other people working with Kenny, and we founded a group called Media, which was
Hmm.
very successful, and we made good money, and we found a whole um, possibility of working with advertising agencies in promoting new products.
Hmm.
So we promoted everything from coffee, granulated coffee, to lingerie, to new cars,
Hmm.
to old cars that were being kind of rust proofing programs,
Yeah.
and to food, to footwear, and you name it, but always inventing new things
Okay.
in the same way that you would write a script
Hmm.
and then illustrate it, use huge projection techniques, multiple slides being projected, being controlled by a computer for the first time, or simplified computer.
Well, it's cool how the various influences you had built upon each other.
This brings me on to what is really an interesting, in a way, design change,
Hmm.
because by the early 70s, or actually 1970, I was tired in a way of two dimension. I was doing a lot of two-dimensional stuff,
Okay.
and I wanted to get back into three dimension. And I interviewed with, and I won the role of a master planner
Hmm.
for a large development company called Scotia Investments.
Okay.
And for 4.5 years, I basically worked almost exclusively for Scotia.
Hmm.
First of all, designing discotheques,
What? Okay.
which are dance halls with food,
Hmm.
bistrotheques,
Yeah.
and later beginning to get into retail, designing shop interiors, and designing various different entertainment components.
What's so cool about you and your experiences is that a lot of the stuff that has is within society today, you've seen, you've been part of the production of,
Yeah,
and it's been part of your life in a way that your day-to-day work is more culturing
yeah.
than someone else's might be if they just have a normal desk job.
Oh, that's definitely true. And where my fortunes lay, and I wasn't aware of this at the time, was that in 1972 I got a call one day to look at a castle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I was a bit suspicious about whether what the owner called a castle was probably just a large house or something.
Mm-hmm.
But I arrived in North Wales, a place called Abergele, to discover that not only was a castle, it was a giant castle, but it was a phony castle. It was a castle that had been built 2 centuries earlier, and as what the English call folly. It's a folly, meaning, in a way, it's a fake castle. So it had huge walls and battlements and gigantic home and house and everything, but it was not really a castle.
Mm-hmm.
Not in the sense of, it wasn't hundreds and hundreds of years old.
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of money that the client had to spend on this basically was very little. And they asked me what I thought I should do with it,
Mm-hmm.
to turn it into some kind of visitor attraction. And I said, destroy it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, that's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll never have enough money to rebuild it.
Mm-hmm.
So by destroying it, we'll build battlements and we'll build wooden towers and we'll make it look like it's been a result of some war in the 13th century.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll put jousting knights. And they said, well, there was no such thing as jousting knights. I said, well, there can be, and there will.
Mm-hmm.
And the following year, we opened the project with jousting knights. And
So that came from imagination.
yes, purely. That was my interpretation of putting genuine medieval people, medieval characters, musicians and acrobats and actors and artisans and everything into the middle of this kind of castle environment.
Mm-hmm. They have something similar to that in Orlando now called Medieval Times.
Yeah, they do. Well, the medieval times actually sort of took the idea from us,
Mm-hmm.
but that's a later story.
Mm-hmm.
But by 72, 73, 74, I was so interested in the potential of medieval reenactment that I founded a company along with 3 other stuntmen out of the British film industry called the Company of Knights.
Mm-hmm.
And the Company of Knights literally was a company that went around Europe
Mm-hmm.
putting on huge shows,
Mm-hmm.
medieval shows, and being paid by burgomeisters and mayors of different towns.
This is a very irregular story.
Very irregular.